conservative writer over at Breitbart has noticed that unvaccinated people seem to be dying at a higher rate of COVID than those who have received the vaccine. Now, this is stuff that we all know, that we've all seen. We've all seen the numbers come out, and we generally know who to blame. Unvaccinated people. However, this conservative writer says, no, it's not the unvaxxed, it's the left. Oh no. So now let me read you parts of this incredibly bizarre op-ed from Breitbart news writer John Nolte. So now he argued on Monday that the left is using reverse psychology to trick Republicans into getting COVID and dying. Of all the insane conspiracies to come out of the right wing, this is something that's very, very special. I mean, it really takes a special kind of stupid to believe that no, they're using reverse psychology on us to make us own ourselves when we're trying to own the libs. Okay, let me okay. This is Nolte writes this, okay? And he points out Howard Stern. So now I talked about Howard Stern last week, and he's been on a tear against anti-vaxxers because, like the rest of us, he wants his life back. Wants to be able to go out and do things without having to worry about an anti-vaxxer giving him COVID and then him giving COVID to someone else. And so now Nolte writes, leftists like Stern and CNN. Okay. Imagine CNN being leftist. Ridiculous. Oh, and Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden, Anthony Fauci. That's who he calls leftists. Yeah. Okay. Now he says that they're all deliberately looking to manipulate Trump voters and supporters into not getting vaccinated. He said, if I wanted to use reverse psychology to convince people not to get a life-saving vaccination, I would do exactly what Stern and the left are doing. I would bully and taunt and mock and ridicule you for not getting vaccinated. Knowing the human response would be like, hey, fuck you, I'm never getting vaccinated. So you know who thinks like that, right? Children. Like, that's a very childish way of looking at the world. Super, super hardcore reactionary. It doesn't make any sense. But again, these people do not have a fully functional brain. That's what it seems like. But again, his entire thesis tends to fall apart too. That you remember when the vaccine came out, everybody was being urged gently to get it. Hesitancy was, of course, met with understanding and explanation because there are some legitimate communities that are vaccine hesitant. Black community especially, the indigenous community. So these communities of color that have been traditionally mistreated by the U.S. government, experimented on with the Tuskegee experiments and things like that, understandable that they have some misgivings or they might have some questions, and that's totally fine. And again, the difference here is if you have legitimate, like if you have questions for the vaccine, well, then you should, go to the CDC, look up their website, call your doctor, talk to them. That's not what's at play here, though. I'm not talking about those people who might have some legitimate questions, right? I'm talking about the people who think your balls swell up, right? If you take the vaccine, or people who think it's a conspiracy to put a tracker in your body, which is like not possible through a vaccine, or mark of the beast. Crazy stuff. Okay. But again, when the vaccine came out and we had a huge jump in people taking it, both conservatives and before this whole thing was political, okay, we were overjoyed because we thought that maybe we could actually put this whole pandemic, start to put it behind us. Now it's nearly October. The Delta variant is devastating unvaccinated communities. Mask mandates have come back in certain places or are coming back, and it's all a result of people making this political. The virus itself is not political. That's it. It doesn't care what party you are or what ideology you subscribe to. It doesn't care if you're covered in the blood of Jesus. No, if you get it, there's a chance, pretty good chance, you're going to get sick from it, and there's also a chance that you're going to die from it, or develop long-lasting symptoms, neurological damage, other organ damage. I mean, again, why would you subject yourself to this over a political disagreement? It's ridiculous. But now, again, conservatives made this political, and there are, of course, some anti-vax factions on the left. They've always existed as well. And so they have this weirdo right-left partnership in hating vaccines now, which is super weird and unfortunate. But, like, everyone else, we're pissed. We did the right things. We locked down. We got the vaccine. We did all the stuff that we were asked to do. And we said, okay, well, that kind of sucks, but yeah, I want to save people's lives, and I want to get, I want to protect myself and my family and my community. All right, fine. We'll do this. We'll endure this. And with the hopes that everything's going to turn out later, as long as we get everybody on board, and we haven't. And so now, after all this time, we're run out of patience because y'all are treading on us now with your bullshit. But there's more. Nolte explains. He says, who wants to cave to a piece of shit like Howard Stern or Jimmy Kimmel or all these repulsive doctors refusing to treat the unvaccinated? Okay, witch doctors. Again, I don't actually mean witch doctors. That's in a witch doctor. But no, okay. He's probably referencing the story where some doctors walked out. But again, you look into the story, they didn't actually walk out and refuse patients. There was something involved with that, but they didn't actually refuse to serve unvaccinated patients. And besides, if you do, I know. The thing about medicine is you're supposed to do no harm, right? And you can't just walk out on a patient. That's extremely unethical. So as much as they might say they want to do that or get mad at anti-vaxxers because they're tired, and look, there are people in the medical community that have quit as a result, that have walked off the job, that were unable to deal with not only the stress, but of course the, dealing with people who are sick and trying to avoid getting themselves or their family sick, especially early on. As I said, when all these medical professionals were going basically with less equipment, no vaccine, they were really, really in a lot of danger. They were put in a lot of danger. And so a lot of people did quit as a result. But generally, if you're a medical professional who prefers to stay in the job, you're not going to walk away from a patient or refuse to treat a patient, even if you disagree with the conditions that led up to them getting a disease or a condition. You're supposed to not be a judgmental person when you're trying to help somebody, right? So no, anyway, getting back to that, he says, all I've seen is talk, or Bette Midler, or. Okay, who wants to feel like they're caving to a guy who's such a piece of shit? He publicly mocks people who have died, and he's not just a piece of shit mocking them. He's a piece of shit hurting the families of the dead men left behind. Okay. No one wants to cave to a piece of shit like that, or scumbag like Fauci, or any of the other scumbags at CNN, LOL. So we don't. And what's the result? They're all vaccinated, and we're not. And when you look at the numbers, the only numbers that matter, which is who's dying, it's overwhelmingly the unvaccinated who are dying, which is true. And they have just manipulated millions of their political enemies into the unvaccinated camp. That is not true. What? Okay, you know what this is? This entire thing, I mean, there's a stunning lack of personal responsibility in this article. Again, imagine being a person who is, I was going to get the vaccine, but you know what? Some lib wasn't nice to me online. He was kind of mean. So you know what? I'll just die. That'll show him. What? What? No, that doesn't make sense. That is brainworms level of thinking. It's so incredibly fucking childish. But Nolte's got it. He's onto something though. Interestingly enough, and I'm going to show you this because here he says, according to the CDC, 99.5% of those dying of the, he of course uses, it's China flu. You know what I mean? So, of course, he's got to throw sprinkle the racism in there. But he says that they're unvaccinated and adds, even if they're lying or exaggerating, even if it's 75 or 80%, which it's not, those numbers are pretty stark. Could it be possibly the left has manipulated huge swaths of Trump voters into believing they're owning the left by not taking the life-saving Trump vaccine? Have you ever thought that maybe the left has us right where they want us? Just stand back for a moment and think about this. Oh yes. I'm doing some thinking. I'm really doing some thinking because this is some warped shit. But he says this, right now, a countless number of Trump supporters believe that they're owning the left by refusing to take a life-saving vaccine. By the way, notice that he keeps peppering that through. So he's saying life-saving vaccine. Look at all these unvaccinated people that are dying. And he's correct. He's correct on all those things. So I just want to point that out because it goes to his overall point. So now he says, right now, a countless number of Trump supporters believe they're owning the left by refusing to take a vaccine. A vaccine, by the way, everyone on the left has taken. Oh, and so is Trump. Yeah, Trump has taken it. And when Trump encouraged people to get the vaccine, they booed him for suggesting it. So now, unless he's a secret lib, makes no sense, right? Trump. But anyway, okay. So now he then goes on to talk about mandates and the so-called effect that they're having on the conservative community. Well, the push for mandates is another ploy to get us to dig in and not do what's best for ourselves because no one wants to feel like they're caving to a mandate. And now, look, we all know the mandates are a response to rising caseloads in hospitals being crammed with COVID-19 patients. The mandates weren't there first, and if we had all gotten this taken care of at the beginning, when we had all had the chance to get vaccinated, chances are we wouldn't have any mandates left. But he gets back into the numbers. Here's what he says, quote, once you learn that 99.5% of all deaths are unvaccinated, it cuts through all the muck. Remember, that number is startling, an eye-opener. Forget cases, forget mandates, forget masks, and Howard Stern, of course. When you learn that almost everyone dying is unvaccinated, that's a come-to-Jesus moment. Oh. I could be wrong, he writes. Maybe the left isn't that evil and sly. But when I think of the unvaccinated lying there dying, being told by their doctor, sorry, there's nothing more we can do to get enough oxygen to your lungs, I don't laugh. My heart breaks for that person. It's a proper reaction, though one that Stern and a lot of other very online people aren't able to muster. Imagine lying there dying, thinking that all you had to do was just get the Trump vaccine. Even if this isn't the left's plan, who's owning who? Huh. So, okay. So for one, let me just mention, like, earlier in another story, I talked about how, at the beginning, of course, all this stuff, empathy. I got empathy. I'm a very empathetic person, okay? At some point, when you make choices willingly that you know are going to hurt other people in order to make political points, that's when I run out of empathy for you, okay? So now for the people that, chose to believe in weirdo propaganda, but then get sick, they get into the hospital and they go, oh my God, I made a mistake. All right, look, I understand. Mistakes happen. And what you did was deeply irresponsible and might have hurt other people. Understand that I can still have empathy for that person, even though admitting that what they did was deeply wrong and irresponsible, but you can still have empathy for that person, okay? Especially if they see the light. I'm a big believer in redemption. I'm a believer in people who were wrong coming around to the right side, to the factual side, and going, oh, that's right. God, turns out I was stupid and wrong. Please, everybody get vaccinated. And of course, that makes me into a little bit of a bleeding heart, libby lib, whatever. I don't care, right? That's where I don't have empathy for people that want to criticize me for no reason. But anyway, all right. So that said, this entire thing, as painful as it is to read, is actually kind of brilliant. And I mean that in a super twisted, weirdo world, MAGA logic kind of way. Because understand, this is a conservative writer for Breitbart, basically making the case for vaccines. And also, by the way, admitting in a weirdo way that they don't have an ideology other than owning the libs. And he is using that to convince other conservatives to get vaccinated because, let's face it, most of the unvaccinated are conservatives. I know. But again, the story has twists and turns. It is both painful and glorious to read. And I could just imagine humans like 100 years from now reading about the pandemic. Of course, I make a lot of assumptions there that we are still here in 100 years. I mean, we got to solve some serious issues before then, but that is a different story for a different time. But say historians later on, they look at this, they're going to use this as a case study for the insanity and conspiratorial mindset that conservatives of 2020 and 2021 and 2019 and 2017 and 2018, 2016 and on have gotten themselves into. And this guy, for whatever reason, and I don't really care his reasonings, maybe he does just really want to own the libs. I don't care. I don't care. Ironically, he's trying to do the right thing in MAGA world in a way that only MAGA understands. Because they are so deeply reactionary and so incredibly conspiratorial that they can only believe, and we'll see how effective this is, they can only believe that, oh, you trying to make me, get the vaccine is just you trying to own me and make me not get the vaccine. Well, fuck you, I'm going to get the vaccine. Okay. Sure. I do hope this helps people, actually. And let me give some assistance to the argument, okay? Oh no, conservatives, if you're watching, I'm going to feel so incredibly owned if you get this vaccine. Wouldn't you love to own this lib right here? Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? I mean, this vaccine, it is full of not only precious antibodies, but liberal tears. So please, don't save your own lives. I beg of you. No, don't do that. Please own me. The whole party is nuts, but you know what? At the end of the day, if it works, it works. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.